Alright, we're going to do a precalculus problem. Note that I'm writing on printer paper because lined paper, that's for writing essays in English. The lines can get in the way of your math. So you should either use printer paper, blank paper, or graph paper. Graph paper might have been nice for this graph. Throughout the day, the depth of water at the end of a pier varies with the tides. High tide occurs at 4 a.m. with a depth of 6 meters. Low tide occurs at 10 a.m. with a depth of 2 meters. 1. Model the problem by using the given trigonometric equation to show the depth y of water x hours after midnight, showing all your work. Alright, first I graphed 2 cycles. So what I did was I just drew my axes. Since I didn't have graph paper, I thought, well, maybe 2 cycles is 2 days, so I went all the way to 48. Then I just kept dividing by 2 to get these tick marks. Then, to get this point, I'm using the fact that high tide occurs at 4 a.m. I'm letting 0 be midnight on just a random day. The y-axis, that's like the meters of depth. The x-axis is in hours. So I got this point first. Then this low tide says it occurs at 10 a.m. with a depth of 2 meters. So that allows me to get this point. Once I have these 2 points, I figured out the center line. So I took the average of 6 and 2. So what I did is I added 6 and 2 and got 8. And I divided 8 by 2 and I got 4. So that gives me the center line here. And then I also drew this dotted line for the peaks all the way over here, and this dotted line for the troughs. And then I thought, okay, well, between this peak and this trough, that's, let's see, it's from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. I wanted to figure out their average, so I add them together and I get 14, divided by 2 and I get 7. So the average sort of occurs at 7, so I can get this point. And so I see that this length here, which is sort of important, that's 3. So 4 to 7, I mark these, and then I mark this, that's going from 7 to 10. Then I want to get some more points. So I go 3 in this direction, 4 minus 3 is 1, so I get this point. And I like to have like these anchor points, so I want another point to get to complete cycle. So 1 minus 3 is negative 2, so I get this point. I extend my x-axis to negative numbers. And then I draw a nice smooth curve to connect these points. Let's get some more points on here so we can do 2 complete cycles. So we want to add 3 units horizontally here, so 10 plus 3 is 13. So we get this dotted line here, and we get this point. And then we draw a nice smooth curve. Then we add 3 to 13 and get 16. Draw this dotted line, get this point. Then we add 3 to 16 and get 19, got this point. Then we add 3 to 19, get 22, get this point. And we connect them to a nice smooth curve. Alright, so we're supposed to model it with this curve, y equals a cosine bx plus c plus d. I stress in my videos that it's more important to understand math and physics than to memorize, so try to understand as much as you can rather than take things on faith. Don't take things for faith. So for instance, don't just accept just because the teacher says that tides can be modeled by a cosine curve. Try to prove that to yourself or understand why. At this point in your education, it'll probably be hard to prove that, but at least think about it, or at least put that on the back burner and make a note that you haven't proven that. It's sort of given to you. Although it does seem reasonable, doesn't it? Alright, so we're going to start plugging in. So since the center line is 4, we can plug in 4 for our d. And since the amplitude, the distance from the center line to a peak or a trough is 2, we can plug in a 2 for A. All right. Then for B, I guess you've seen the formula that B is equal to 2 pi over big T, where big T is the period. Big T is frequently used for period because it's like, the time, a sum of little times the time it takes, for a complete cycle. I don't want you to memorize, I don't really understand. So I want you to understand, if possible, why B is equal to 2 pi over the period. Try to, I guess pause the video, stop the video, and prove that to yourself, think about it. I do have a video on transforming graphs. My video on functional transformations might be nice for you to watch. Be sure to please subscribe to my channel so I can get, it takes time for me to do this. That would help me get funding, like advertising, if you would all subscribe. So try to understand why, for sines and cosines, we've got this B relationship equaling to 2 pi over the period. Okay, we have y is equal to 2 times the cosine of 2 pi over 12. Why? Because the period is 12. Because let's going from a peak to a peak. Well, let's just see. We know that this little nice thing here is 3. So how many groups of 3 do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 3 is 12. That's how we're able to plug in that 12. Oh, and so it's interesting. The reason I wanted to graph 2 periods, so I thought it would be like 2 days. That's why I went up to 48 hours. But it made sense because I know from my studies that the tides are caused by the moon. The moon's gravitational force on the Earth's waters is what causes the tides. The moon sort of pulls the water towards it. And like on the other side of the moon, the tides are sort of, I don't know why, but bunched up too. So it's 12 hours apart. That would be nice to understand. But the cycles of tides are 12 hours in period. Okay, we have y is equal to 2 times the cosine of 2 pi over 12x plus c times 12 over 2 pi plus 4. How did I know to do this? Well, it's because, I try to, when I do math myself, I try to understand it rather than memorizing. That's what helps me do this step, because I understand graph transformations. I hope you will too. I do have a video on transforming graphs. I know that to do a horizontal shift, what you're going to do is replace x with x minus h, right? If you want to shift a graph h units horizontally, you replace x with x minus h. That's why I want to tease out the x. This doesn't have like an x sort of teased out where I can, sort of isolate the x. So I'm doing it here, and then to get if I'm factoring out the 12 to 2 pi over 12 to isolate the x, I know that I need this 12 here and this 2 pi, and we can check it. Sorry, I need to clear my throat again. We can check it. Because if we multiply this 2 pi through by the distributive law, we'll get back to c. Okay, we have y is equal to 2 times the cosine of 2 pi over 12 times x minus 4 plus 4. How did I do that? Well, first, let's just cover up this with our finger and pretend it's not there, and this is just an x. Cover up the plus sign, so it's just an x. Imagine it's just an x. Then the graph of this guy would be a cosine curve, and this would be at the, over the 0 point. You should know this from your studies, and you should understand why. This would be at the 0. So how do we go from that to the graph at hand? We've done a horizontal shift of 4 units to the right. And as I said in my video on transforming, when you do something to x, it's the opposite of what you think. So you would think since you're doing 4 units to the right, you would add 4 to the x, but it's the opposite, so you subtract 4 to the x. Again, imagining that this is just an x with no stuff added or subtracted. So that's how we get this negative 4. Well, the teacher wanted it in this form, and that's going to be easy. We just use the distributive law. And again, it's my understanding that's guiding me. I don't recommend that you guys memorize algorithms or just lists of rules or recipes, because it's masking your understanding of the math and the physics. Just try to let your understanding of math be your guide. And it takes effort because you have to spend time understanding, if you can, all the facts that the teacher just asks you to memorize. All right, so we're going to use the distributive law to get this in the form the teacher wants. So we bring the 2x minus 12 next to the 4. Don't worry about the canceling. I'll do that in the next step. So then I'm ready to cancel. So let me get closer to that. So I cross out the 2 and the 12, and then 2 goes into 12 6 times, so that's how I get the 6. Then I cross out the 6 and the 4, both divide each side by 2, I get the 3 and the 2. All right, so that's how I get this 2 and this 3, and there is our final answer. So the big takeaway here is, as I always say, understanding is more important than memorizing.